My name is Teresa. For those of you that are new to Simcha this year, I just arrived a week ago with my husband, Michael, and my son, Ian, who is running the slides for us today. And as Scott mentioned, it's been 10 years that we have been trying to come to New Zealand. I probably will cry in this presentation because I'm just so moved by the faithfulness of God. So I want to tell you how I ended up here, but before I tell you how I ended up here, I want to tell you how I ended up here in the world of messianic things. Because I was not raised in a messianic community. I was actually raised in a town outside of Washington, D.C., called Rockville, Maryland. I was raised Catholic, went to Mass every Sunday with my parents. And it's funny, but looking back now, I can see the hand of God in my life, even before I was a believer, the ways that he was drawing me and pulling me. For instance, I remember one day walking home from school, and you remember the photo that Nita had on the slides of the cross and the fish and the Star of David? I actually found one of those on the sidewalk when I was like 7 years old. There was a little pendant that was on the sidewalk, and I picked it up and I thought, that's the strangest thing I've ever seen. But I kept it for a long time. I don't know whatever happened to it, but I ended up losing it at one point. And then years later, in high school, I was playing ball, and a block from my parents' house in this neighborhood was a little teeny Jewish congregation on the corner. And I'd go running, I was a ball player, so I'd go running every weekend to stay in shape for whatever. And I'd take my break on their steps every Saturday morning. And I'd hear this amazing worship music coming out of this little congregation. I thought, man, they're so good. And I had not heard worship like that before. And I thought it was so strange coming from a Jewish congregation. And then one day I thought, man, I thought they said Jesus in there. They say words that I didn't know Hebrew at all, but it turns out later on I found out that was actually Paul Wilbur and Mark Chapinski leading worship at Beth Messiah congregation. That was where they were leading worship at the time. So that was a treat to find out and then they ended up moving when I accepted the Lord. I was 18. I was in Ocean City, New Jersey for the week, and friends of mine led me to the Lord there. And when I came back home, the mother of these friends of mine took me to this little Baptist church down the street, and I started going and getting plugged into Bible studies, and just my spiritual life grew as a Christian. I was a brand new Christian, and I loved the Lord, got involved in worship things, leading worship for women's Bible studies, church events, lots of things. Eventually met my husband. We got married. We had, at the time, 2 children. We're homeschooling. This is 15 years later. Living just a little Christian family life. Not once in that 15 years did I ever once think of sharing the gospel with Jewish people a priority. Never even occurred to me that was something I should do. I read the verse so many times, but just skipped over it. And thought, well, that must mean something else. I don't know what that means. And so one day in our homeschool group, there was an Orthodox woman in the group. I just assumed she was an Orthodox Jewish woman. We had lots of Jewish people, by the way, where I came from. When I went to school, we had Jewish holidays off. There were so many teachers and students that were Jewish that we actually had Jewish holidays off in our school system. And Margie will even tell you she was known as a Shabbos Goy in her neighborhood. All the Jewish people in her neighborhood would ask her to babysit for them for all the different events that they would have. So it was not being around, unlike Nita, who had never met a Jewish person before. I knew many Jewish people as a kid growing up, and I worked for them. And so I was not unfamiliar with Jewish people. I just thought that that was them, and we're Christians and they're Jewish, and there's no common ground. And so this Orthodox woman was teaching in our homeschool group a class on the biblical feasts. And I went to her and I said, I'd really love my 2 children to get in your class. Is there an opening? And she said, oh, I'm very sorry. It's closed. We already have too many kids. But she said, I'll tell you what, my husband and I are leading a Torah study on Wednesday nights. It's called Jesus in the Torah. And if you'd like to come, you're welcome. So I thought, well, okay, I'll mention it to Michael. I came home and I said, there's this Jewish woman who's invited us to this Bible study called Jesus in the Torah. And he said, yes. And I thought, okay, I'll call her. So we started going. We were the only non-Jewish people, Gentiles, in this Bible study. It was remarkable. We started hearing things we had never heard before. And we went for a year. And at this Bible study, every week, religiously, was the mother of one of the leaders of this Bible study. Her name was Miriam. Miriam was like 4'11". She reminded me so much of my grandmother. She was not a believer in Yeshua. She only came because she loved our children. She came every week to see Morgan and Chloe. And she fought in the Six-Day War. She drove a tank in the Six-Day War. She was an Israeli. She had immigrated to the United States and lived not far from her son. So the only reason she was at this Bible study was to see my children. One day, she had her Bible on her lap, and she threw it across the floor. Now, you just don't do that with a Bible if you're Jewish. It's like a sacred text. And her son reached over and picked it up and brushed it off, and he kissed the spine, and he handed it to her, and he said, Mama, what's wrong? And she said, no, you get me my Bible. That's not my Bible. And he looked at it, and he opened up the first page, and there was her bat mitzvah date and her name, her parents' names. He said, Mama, this is your Bible. What's wrong? And she says, no, you get me my Bible. My Bible didn't have all that stuff about Yeshua in it. And for the first time, I saw this woman starting to see through her own scriptures the promised Messiah of Israel. And I was changed. And then, if that wasn't enough, Dayenu, she looked at Michael and I, and she said, you're Gentiles, and you believe in the Jewish Messiah? And we looked at her and we said, yes. And then she said, do you tell my people? And it was like a knife going through my heart. I could just, in that one moment, I could think of all the times I've read over that verse, to the Jew first and then to the Gentile. And I hadn't. So from that day forward, Michael and I, we just sort of made this decision. We don't know how to do this. We don't even know what to do, but we want to do this. So the next week, we ended up at this little congregation down the road called Son of David, which was led by this man named Scott Brown. And it's funny, I just thought of this morning. We first met Scott and Margie there, and they said, oh, let's go out for dinner. We'd love to meet you. We went to Outback Steakhouse together, and I think it's funny that we all ended up down under. But that was the beginning of our new life in Yeshua. And then years later, Scott came back after his trip to New Zealand with Margie, and he said, hey, look, we're going to be leaving the congregation, and they said we would like you to join us. And that was 10 years ago this month that we came with Scott as he was looking for a place, a home for him and his family. Michael and I came saying, Lord, is this what you would have us do? And as he was driving around, they were driving, I didn't drive, was not going to drive. But we were driving around the islands and dreaming up ministry opportunities. And today, Celebrate Messiah is doing all of the things that we dreamed up in the car that weekend. It's just amazing when I just look back at what the Lord has done. So that was our dream. Then we proceeded to go home, and every door shut for Michael and I to come. It just seemed like every time, and we even filed an expression of interest at one point. We tried so many different ways to come, and it didn't happen. And we really thought, did we hear God? Did we hear him correctly? And last year, we came again, and just through just a series of miracles and just talking to different people, the Lord made a way. And here we are. So I am delighted to be here. And some of the things that I'm looking forward to doing with all of you is just being available to you. If you have a women's Bible study and you'd like me to come and lead worship or lead a small group or a small session on the Jewish feasts or the Jewish roots of our faith, anything that you would like, I'm here for you. If you need prayer, I'm here for you. If you would like to network with others around you, I really want to network some of the hosts together, have concerts of prayer on a regular basis. There are opportunities to be in your church. They mentioned a book earlier, sharing the Jewish Messiah in the Passover. You don't have to just share with Jewish people the Jewish Messiah in the Passover. Share with your Christian friends the Jewish Messiah in the Passover. Invite them over for a Seder. One of the things that I was really surprised to find out when I started spending time in a Jewish congregation was almost every single Jewish person that I talked to that came to faith in Yeshua came from a Gentile sharing the gospel with them, not a Jewish person. Because they feel that Jewish people they've committed treason. They're much more willing to listen to a Christian about Jesus than a Jewish person who believes in Yeshua. Not that it doesn't happen, but just that you have a purpose as a Gentile believer, especially one even that understands the importance of Israel and the Jewish Messiah. So don't do what I did for so many years as a Christian. Make it a priority. Even if it's just praying for the Jewish travelers that come through. That's huge. It's huge. So I'm so excited to be here.
There was this enormous gap in our ministry, and that is this void regarding worship. Now, you might be thinking, well, you're an evangelistic organization. What does worship have to do with anything? You tell me, who were the front line? Yeah, the front line in Israel's army in the Bible, worshipers. I mean, it's absurd to be doing frontline work, which is what you heard in our introductory video. We are a frontline evangelism organization without worshipers. And so this is so exciting to me as a director. We see this gap being filled by a worshiper. And so we really want Teresa to be serving the local church. And so this is an invitation to you to invite her. Messianic worship is something which helps some churches understand the Messianic vision, the vision of sort of embracing the Jewish roots of our faith and incorporating, for example, the festivals, the feasts into our worship. This is what Teresa is here for. Now, I haven't mentioned Michael, although Michael is, he has been... He drives. Okay. Michael has been deeply involved in Jewish evangelism as well. I don't have time to tell you all the things he's done in the Washington, D.C. area. However, here's one critical issue. Now I'm speaking as a man. I'm just speaking as a man. Immigration New Zealand says, you guys can't stay except for one condition, and that is that this guy finds a job in his field. And his field, Michael was a project manager, I believe contracted by the Department of Energy for how many years? A long time. He's a big shot, okay? He's an IT guru whiz kid. And he needs to find, according to Immigration New Zealand, if he doesn't find that job in his field, then they will eventually be deported. Now, I'll speak as a child of God. We're not worried. We're not worried one bit. We believe that he needs to find that job, but we're not going to be pleading with God, and we're not going to be beating our chests and worrying and trying to manipulate Michael into a position. What we're going to do right now, and we hope you'll join us, is thank God for whatever he's going to do with this precious couple. So would you pray with me? Avinu v'malkeinu, Father and King. We need a Father, an Abba, who will hold us close and give us wisdom. We need a king, an administrator, a conqueror, someone who will go before us and carry us on the wings of his government. And you are the one we appeal to for this job. But it's in our heart just to thank you, Lord, just to thank you for perhaps the job you'll supply or not. Perhaps you'll find another way altogether, despite the Immigration New Zealand machine, to enable this couple to remain and do the work of God in New Zealand. So we lift this before you. We don't have any wisdom of our own. We come to you naively, believing that you know the beginning and the end, and that you have a plan and a purpose that includes Michael and Teresa in New Zealand. And so thank you for whatever you're going to do. Give us the ability to discern your purposes for them so that we can get on the bandwagon of heaven and say yes to whatever it is you bring down into their life. Thank you, Father. In Yeshua's name, amen.